There we go. All right, we are really thrilled to have with us three folks from University of Prince Edward Island who do some very, very special work studying islands. Those of you who were at our summit last year on Beaver Island got to meet Helena, who's with us. She's one of the grad students at UPEI. And we also have with us Joe Godden, who has a special connection to Great Lakes Islands that she will tell you about, I'm sure. And then we, of course, have Lori Brinklow, who is the chair of the department. Do I have that right? Okay, perfect. So they're going to give us some information about their program, and we're really excited to learn about how you study islands and how you approach your research and all the cool things that you're doing at UPEI.
Great. Well, I'll start, but with I will try and keep it really short presentation about the Institute of Island Studies and what we do here on the Prince Edward Island on the east coast of Canada. So let me just back up here. Yes, that's what I am. I'm the chair of the Institute of Island Studies and coordinator of the Master of Arts in Island Studies program, also the president of the International Small Island Studies Association, or ASISA for short. So you can see where we're going here. We're quite a broad organization with global ties to islands. So if you think that you're doing this alone, you're not. You're part of a bigger organization around the world that is looking at islands. And so really glad to be here with you today. And I'm also the honorary consul from Iceland to Prince Edward Island, which is pretty cool. These are just some images of PEI. You can see the bottom one is the 12.9 kilometer bridge.
Lori, I
That's,
don't think your screen share is currently active. Do
it's
you want to
not
try that
working.
again? Yeah,
Okay, I'm
it
trying.
hasn't popped up. I wasn't sure if you were doing it yet or not. There
Yes.
we go. Now we can see.
Oh, sorry.
That's
Okay, here
okay.
we
Thanks.
go. Now from the beginning. Let's try this again from beginning. Can you see it now?
Yep. Looks
Great,
perfect.
yay. Okay, so the bridge at the bottom, 9 miles or 12.9 kilometers, and joins us to the province of New Brunswick. So Prince Edward Island is a province. It's Canada's smallest province with 180,000 people. It's 5660 square kilometers. I don't know how much that is in miles, and you can see it there in relationship to Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Quebec, and then Maine just off to the side beside New Brunswick. So if you go up the St. Lawrence River, we'll end up in the Great Lakes. I'm just going to do a quick talk about what Island Studies is, our vision and mandate, and what we're doing now at home and abroad. So here's some of the things that we have been doing over the years. The Institute of Island Studies was founded in '85, so we've been around for a really long time. We've been contributing to public policy on the island for many years through projects that we've done, starting with the North Atlantic Islands program, where we were looking at islands from across the north, from Iceland all the way over to the Isle of Man, and including Newfoundland, Cape Breton, and PEI. We've done stuff closer to home with trying to negotiate immigration on Prince Edward Island because we've had a number of newcomers come to the island. So how do they fit in? That's what the conversation around intangible is. What are the intangible effects of having newcomers to the island? We're about to embark on one on global land use on islands. So I'll be very curious to know if there's any land use policies that some of your islands in the Great Lakes have in place that we might be able to adapt, because land is a huge issue on PEI and has been for a couple of centuries now. These are some of the things that we have at the Institute or through Island Studies at UPEI. We've got the Institute, this Research, Education, and Public Policy Institute. We have a press, Island Studies Press. We have the Master of Arts in Island Studies degree, of which Joe and Helena are part of. Been doing that since 2003. We used to have a Canada Research Chair in Island Studies. And so Dr. Godfrey Baldacchino, if you do any readings at all in Island Studies, Google Island Studies, his name is going to come up right at the top because he's one of the pioneers in it. We also had the Island Studies Journal based here, but it's now based out of China, but it's still going strong. I just got an email today saying they published their 500th paper, which is pretty amazing, since 2003. And we have our UNESCO chair in Island Studies and Sustainability. There are four mandates there. Islandstudies.com, that's what we are. And it's really easy to find us. Here's our vision and 4-point mandate. A lot to do with community, but a lot also to do with comparative work on other islands. Some of the books that we published, including The Bridge Effect, which I co-edited with Andrew Jennings from the University of the Highlands and Islands. So one of the key topics of conversation, I'm sure, around islands is how do I get there? And because it's, the defining factor is water, as Matt mentioned right at the outset. So it's crossing that water. So this book is devoted several chapters to islands that are connected in some way around the world. We also host conferences. Our most recent one was called Turning the Tide, Island Imaginaries and Interdisciplinaries in Climate Change. It was last summer and had probably about 100 presentations on islands and climate change, and some of them were artistic, which was always trying to be an interdisciplinary program where we draw upon lots of ways of learning and knowing, and art is just one of those, another language, I suppose, of learning. We also host public symposia. We haven't had, our last one was in 2024 on homelessness and food insecurity on Canada's food island. We used to host a couple a year, and then the pandemic happened, and we haven't quite got our stride yet in getting back into them, but hopefully we will. It's usually something of interest to islanders, whether it's population, whether it's land use, water, governance, agriculture, sustainability. All of those things have come up over the past number of years, and we are always pleased to host some kind of a symposium bringing together speakers. We have a lecture series that happens, that has happened every year. We've had 7 or 8 a year. Last night we had one on, because it was St. Patrick's Day, we invited a local amateur historian, retired history teacher, to come and talk about his Irish family and his Irish roots. So it was just, yeah, we try and find topics either from Prince Edward Island or from other islands so that we can keep that conversation going about what we can learn from other islands. Doing some research here, some of the projects that we've been working on over the years. The most recent one I think I mentioned was Intangible, Population Change on Islands. This picture of the beach with the boardwalk going down, that was after we had a hurricane here in 2022, Hurricane Fiona, and it wiped out a whole bunch of the dunes on the North Shore. And so we've been watching them slowly grow back, but it was quite a wake-up call that here we are on the East Coast, right in the track of a hurricane, and just what it did, what we need to be doing better to prepare for hurricanes and hazards. So that vital conversations, the second last bullet point there, key components of hazard readiness, was one of the projects that we worked on as well. The Sinking Islands there, the piece of art that was done showing Prince Edward Island at the top, but then with rising sea levels, it could almost become 4 Prince Edward Islands. And so, this could happen within 100 years, that we become 4 pieces if the sea rises high enough. And that was quite a wake-up call to realize that we're that vulnerable. More research, we did a COVID-19 Island Insight series in 2021. Islands played quite a role in health and pandemics, and we really learned it during the pandemic, how what people did, how they reacted, and islands were special places because we could control our borders very easily and keep the disease out for quite a while until Omicron came, and then it was all bets were off, but we did a pretty good job for the first couple of years. This is a couple of pages from our project Wellbeing that we were working on, continue to work on, looking at indicators of well-being through a Canadian university's, the Canadian Centre for Wellbeing has these domains. And so we surveyed people on Prince Edward Island about their sense of well-being, and then in the end came up with a 9th domain of islandness. And that's what I suppose it could be place or place identity or place attachment, but in our case it's islands. And so how does that contribute to the fact that you live on an island, you have wonderful connections with people. People come together often. If somebody is diagnosed with cancer, there will be a fundraiser for it. And we had one of the highest voter turnouts in Canada, and we attribute that to our sense of community and sense of islandness. And so that's what we're calling our superpower is islandness in when we talk about resilience on islands. Islands are often known for being vulnerable, but we like to turn that on its head and say, no, we are resilient. We have a lot going on, and there's certain qualities and traits of islanders that we can identify not just on Prince Edward Island, but on islands around the world, like ingenuity, being able to make something out of nothing because you have to in order to survive. So I like to think of that as our superpower. We also have what we call the MAISE, the Master of Arts in Island Studies program, where we have now 51 students and over 120 graduates. These pictures were from a conference in Aruba, one of the Turning the Tide conferences in 2023. So we took a number of students there. We have a thesis stream and a course-based stream, and both Helena and Joe are in the thesis stream, and they'll probably talk about their work. Those are some of the theses that we've done recently. The students have defended recently. We also have a course and work study stream, so you can come and it's over in 2 years. You don't have to write a thesis, but you can choose island tourism, sustainable island communities, or international relations and island public policy are the three featured portions of our MAISE program. And we have about half domestic students from Canada and about half international students. We have a number of students from the United States, which has been wonderful. And adding a particular slant on things, especially up the eastern seaboard. Have had lovely student from Maine. She was connected with the Island Institute there at Rockport, and she's from a little island called Little Cranberry Island, and ended up doing her thesis work on the fishery, looking at a comparison between her islands in Maine and Newfoundland's fisheries policy. And this is where, we start over the last number of years, we've become very active in the international scene with island studies. As I mentioned, we have the UNESCO chair in island studies, who is Dr. Jean Mitchell right there. With 600 million islanders in the world, about 10% of the world's population, you can see that there's about 10% of the population who should be interested in islands, and because that's where they live and they realize the unique circumstances that happen from living on an island. We also boast our MAISE program has a global classroom because with technology, we're able to bring in scholars from around the world. Here are some of the groups that we've worked with over the years. The one I mentioned, I'm president of ASISA, and we have a conference coming up in South Korea in July, and so that's going to be interesting, bringing island scholars from around the world. We are also part of the Canadian Rural Revitalization Foundation, or SURF, and I think that's where maybe Matt and I first crossed paths in talking about that. I can't remember. It was many years. It was before the pandemic that we had our first conversation, and trying to get Matt to one of our SURF conferences, which hasn't happened yet, but we will, because I think that or an island studies conference, because just being in the same room and listening to the same issues that you realize you're not alone. You're part of a bigger community and lots of lessons that can be learned from other places. I have very strong ties with the Institute for Northern Studies at the University of the Highlands and Islands in Shetland, and we were just there a couple of weeks ago to work on a project called Ocean. So it's about our relationship with the ocean through fisheries and heritage to do with fisheries, ocean, and young people, climate change, all of those things. We're trying to get a research project off the ground. Here's a few more. Local community organization in Scotland called CODAL, very grassroots. Then some universities, there's the Island Institute there. Island Innovation is another one. Every fall they have the Global Island Summit. So that's a virtual kind of conference that lasts 5 days, and you can dip in and dip out onto webinars with speakers from around the world talking about island issues. University of the Arctic is another one that we've become quite involved with. And through that, our thematic network on Northern and Arctic Island Studies research. And so I'm thinking, maybe somebody from your islands would like to join, even though you're not in the Arctic, you're certainly north. And we would love to have some freshwater island perspectives as well. So yeah, those are some of the things. There I am, my Brinklow at upi.ca, our website islandstudies.com, and I like to think of the world, the planet, the globe as an island in space, and so I always love to end on that picture. So thank you, and I will take it off the slideshow, and after later, happy to answer any questions about what we're doing. So again, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to making collaborating and trying to strengthen our relationship between because we have a lot of things in common.
Yeah, we did have one question in the chat from Bob Anderson. He was wondering, you mentioned you had some students from the US. Do you know if any of them are from US islands?
Well, one was from Little Cranberry Island off
Okay.
the coast of Maine, and but the other was she was from New Jersey. I don't know how much of New Jersey is an island,
Oh,
and
that is.
somebody South Carolina. She's grew up around the islands, although she wasn't on an island, but she's certainly quite familiar with the islands. So yeah.
Very cool. Well, I think next we were going to hear maybe from some of our students about their work. I don't know which one of you wants to go first.
I mean, I can go unless Helena, you're really excited to go first. No. Okay, awesome. I'm not super tech savvy, so just give me a second to get the share screen going.
Totally. You got it.
Okay. Okay, how does that look for everyone?
It's fantastic.
Okay, awesome. Sweet. So yes, thank you for having me. My name's Joe Godden. I'm currently calling in from Charlottetown, PEI, but my home island is Amherst Island in Lake Ontario. I joined the Maze program last fall, and I've been working through my courses this past academic year, and I'll be beginning my thesis work come this fall. So I'm at the very beginning of my thesis project. And I'm looking forward to moving home to, I've been in Charlottetown for about 8 years now, working and studying on campus here. So I'm looking forward to moving home and really pursuing this project. Gonna be, I'm so excited. It's gonna be really fun. If anyone's not familiar with Amherst, it's in the northeastern corner of Lake Ontario. It's right across the water from Kingston, right between Wolfe Island and Prince Edward County. And more broadly, it's right in between about Toronto and Ottawa ways up there. Um, and yeah, it's very like local, beautiful island. I refer to it as my island, as I'm sure everyone refers to their own island as that. Colloquially, it's known as the gem of Lake Ontario. The primary village in Amherst Island is Stella. My parents or my family comes from the Poplar Dell Bed and Breakfast on Amherst Island. And this is where most of my memories came from as a kid. One of these pictures here is of featuring a barn dance that we hosted a couple years ago. And it's just a great memory. We've been hosting barn dances on the island forever, as long as I can remember. The island hosts about 600 people in the summer and about 400 people in the winter. That's pretty consistent. The island is primarily, it's a residential neighborhood and recently has been turning into a growing retirement community as well. So lots of slow living on the island. If anyone is heading to town or if you needed groceries or anything like that, you'd be heading to Kingston or Amherst View off the ferry. And the ferry there that connects Stella and Millhaven is about a 20-minute ferry ride. So my thesis research is going to be primarily focusing on the history of Amherst Island, but specifically its transition into the 21st century and beyond. I'm eager to look into its social aspects, how the culture has shifted over the years, how the economy has shifted with technology, people moving on the island and off the island. It's experienced so many changes. And also recently, with an addition of a wind farm from Wind Electric, the island has changed just that much more. So my thesis is pretty broad. I'm fully expecting once I wade into it that it'll change and shift as I learn new things. Um, so yeah, this is kind of the starting point of my research. The island was initially named after being colonized, of course. It was named by the French Isle Tonty. Later, it was renamed as Amherst Island to honor an English general. Between 1835 and the 1930s, it had a fairly significant population and could host like numerous bars. There were three different schools, churches, businesses, farms. The island was very active and had a thriving community. And kind of in past years since World War II, population has really dwindled, and the island has shifted, like I said, into a retirement community, into farming, all these kinds of things. Amherst does host the largest concentration of Irish stone walls outside of Ireland, of course, which is really cool. And every year we host the Amherst Island Dry Stone Wall Festival, which is always really exciting and definitely worth a visit if anyone's in the area in September. I have some pictures here. This is my like great uncle Art Drumgoole ferrying the mail across the ice in the winter. So, and before the first Amherst Islander ferry came around, they would use sleighs and just drive across the ice, and they could take their cars on the ice and they just drive on, get onto the mainland, come back. So, ironically, back then, the winter was more accessible because you could just take your car, your horse onto the ice, and you didn't have to be lucky enough to have a boat or have a friend who had a boat or anything like that. A very different story now. So now since the arrival of the Amherst Island wind farm, there was a lot of pushback from the community concerning this wind farm. The island protested it, fended it off for about 10 years, and then in 2017, the wind farm became active. And it's changed the landscape of the island very much so. I think it's produced some good, definitely a lot of challenges for the island. Um, but I think in the end, the island has changed so much and it's looking better than ever. So yeah, I have some pictures here. This cute turtle here is the Blandings turtle. It's an endangered species that the island hosts. Big fan of the turtle. I have some pictures here just displaying some of the protest actions that was taken during that time. I think part of my research will be focusing, not primarily, but I think to honor and acknowledge these kinds of drastic changes the island has gone through. My research will be focusing a little bit on on the wind farm, but lots of great associations have come from that project. So the Association to Protect Amherst Island, the Amherst Island Recreation Association, which everyone's a huge fan of and has been doing a lot of good on the island, and the Amherst Island Community Alliance as well. One thing about Amherst is we love a committee. We love a meeting, and I think that's pretty common on all islands. But yeah, so that's just a bit about me and my research. Thank you so much. And I will stop sharing now.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing. Anybody have questions for Joe before we move on?
There's one in the chat there from Peter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Peter was wondering if there were any significant changes after COVID that happened, particularly for visitors, maybe on Amherst, if you were aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, Amherst's primary economy right now is just tourism. So yeah, COVID definitely changed a lot. And I know it changed a lot in everyone's social habits on the ferry. I'm sure other islands, experience like ferry social culture has like shifted because of COVID and things. Yeah, it's definitely dwindled. I'd say it's less of a tourist attraction now than it used to be in like the 90s and the aughts and that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm curious to unpack the maybe when we have time at the end, the wind farm thing is really interesting to me because I feel like in island ecologies, we're constantly talking about environment and changes to grid infrastructure that are sustainability focused, but then have an impact on island life is really interesting dichotomy there to discuss. I'm sure that will be a big part of your research, but yeah, that just got me thinking about that whole issue. Matt has a question, it looks like. Are you seeing changes in winter ice, and is that having an impact? I'm assuming that you can't take horses across the ice anymore.
Yeah, no more. The ice is yeah, definitely not strong enough anymore for that. And I think yeah, a few tragedies here and there really prevent people from attempting in that. The ferry does have some underwater, like I don't know what it's called, but there's an underwater bubble system that warms the ice where the ferry crosses to the mainland. So that assists in keeping the ferry active all year round, which is great. But yeah, I think since the 90s, before then, people, yeah, skating, everything on the ice, but people don't trust it now the same way that they used to, for sure. Yeah. Mhm.
All right. Well, being respectful of everybody's time, do we want to give Helena the floor to talk a little bit about what you're working on?
Absolutely. Just I was just about that whole ice thing. I was just going to mention like my husband's great grandparents. That was like back, obviously, great grandparents back in the day. But it like they're from a wee little island up by Quebec, and his great grandparents. It was Christmas Eve, but they went through the ice. They went shopping. They crossed on horse and buggy across the ice. To the mainland. Did the Christmas shopping on their way back. So it's quite the tragedy then. So yeah, the ice is, yeah, that's crucial. So, and speaking of ice, we had a beautiful, wonderful, crazy snowstorm here where I was islanded in. Like it was, we couldn't get out. It was crazy. It just brought me back to that whole, we're isolated. Like we were just completely snowed in, massive snowstorm. So to my research, when I uh, was looking for a master's program, I I was looking around and I couldn't find anything that was really uh, interest interested me. It just didn't call to me. And speaking of calling, and that's where it was. I always had this calling for my island. And seeing as how I live in Greater Sudbury, so I grew up in a rural community, a little mining town further north, about 10 hours from here, actually, Manitowoc, a little mining town, Manitowoc. So again, it was like half an hour into the bush, and that's where I grew up. So I always wanted to get out. I always wanted to get out, but I always visited the island. My parents and I, when I was close to two, we emigrated here to Canada. So my research is about that. It's that whole emigration thing and what happens. Why was I always having this calling? Like, why did I always want to go back to our island? Like I was born there, and yeah. So, and we always hear the expression "saudade." I don't saudade. So that's a Portuguese. This missing, right? This calling. So when I discovered uh, when I discovered the program, I couldn't believe it. I didn't know it existed. And I thought, oh my gosh, I wonder how many more people don't know that this program at the University of Prince Edward Island exists. Like it was by accident that I came across it. And right away, I was like, oh, once I got on the island, on Prince Edward Island, because it's so close to mine. Like I don't know if I mentioned it was the Azores, like from San Miguel. So that's in the middle of the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. So, anyways, and I got on the I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so close. And then in the program itself, it just opened up a whole world of all sorts of information and just incredible knowledge and research that was being done about islands. We're here, as mainlanders, thinking, we just view islands. We always do. Just that whole sun sand, the touristy thing, and that's it. Without realizing what the islanders themselves and their islands are experiencing. So my research originally started off looking at three island youth, which was Lucy Maud Montgomery from the past, Greta Thunberg, the advocate, and Autumn Pelche from Manitoulin. So, and how these young people were uniting by themselves, just using their young voices to just express, the protection of the islands and their way of the islands and all these things. And then I thought, oh my gosh, okay. As I was on the island, I started recognizing Prince Edward Island. I started recognizing Lucy Maud Montgomery is, if you don't know Lucy Maud Montgomery, she is the author of Anne of Green Gables. So most people know Anne of Green Gables. Nobody really knew. And still to this day, when I say, oh, Lucy Maud Montgomery, who's Lucy Maud Montgomery? The author of Anne of Green Gables. So I thought, oh my gosh, she is deeply embedded on this island. Like, it's like, for people to know Prince Edward Island, I feel stems from them. Because that's, as Laurie says, just a wee little island, it's just a little speck. And so anyways, but heard this story of a child, just like open up this whole world to Prince Edward Island, for like the world to know Prince Edward Island. So she emigrated. She wrote emigrated to Ontario. It was forced by marriage. Well, by marriage, like that's where work was, right? As most people, they have to leave because of work. But it was forced. She didn't want to leave. As most islanders, they don't want to leave. Some do for exploration and so forth. But, she needed to leave. All her books were all about the island, the island, the island. So it's this whole identity thing for her. It's a culture thing. It's like as I started reading her journals, how important this island was to her. Like, she lived half her life on the island and the rest till she died still about the island from Ontario. So I thought, what? This woman keeps writing about this island. Why is this so important to her? And so I wanted to know, like, is she trying to capture, like, keep her islandness, like, still with her? Like, so that's what basically my research is about. And yeah, that's where I'm at. And it's, in the end, yeah, she finally returned to her island in death. She's buried there. But she never forgot her island. Her heart was the island always. But she became an islander and like a blend of the two, a mainlander and islander. So yeah, that's what it is.
Part of the upshot or the result of Lucy Maud Montgomery's work is that we have this most amazing tourism industry that would never have happened if it hadn't been for her. So it's that, what is literary tourism? What does one person do for an island? So she drives our tourism industry as much as we, wish that we're something else.
Yes, the islanders, from my understanding, are just Anne of Green Gables, Anne of Green Gables. There's more to us than Anne of Green Gables, but Anne of Green Gables is what, opened up that world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, Helena, it was really wonderful when the opportunity for you to go to the meeting last fall. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that, what it was like for you to meet some of the other folks from GLIA and
Yes, yes. So then when I got to like when I got to Beaver Island, oh my goodness, what an experience that was as well. It was a little challenging getting there. Again, the whole bridge thing, the congestion. It was, and then the weather was bad. There was so much fog because I was going to fly. I was going to take their plane in, but couldn't. The next, oh, it was so amazing. The way that they came together. Uh, so they got me set up in a hotel, and then I was able to take the ferry over the next day. So that was great. And as soon as I got off, there's all these islanders just waiting, right? Waiting to take us like, back to our accommodations, and it was amazing. What I saw like was the as far as GLIA went, how well put together that was, how they all organized that so beautifully. Uh, and then once we started doing our tours or and all that, then I started noticing how the island itself, the islanders, how they come together, how they make the island work. Like, because when you're contained like that, it's all the different um, all the different ways that they're able to get the islands. I don't know, just living like without it was I don't know, it's and how similar it was. It was absolutely like just incredible that even Great Lakes islands and islanders are very much the same as the Great Ocean Islands. It's the same challenges, the same everything. It was, yeah, and the dunes and the whole, this trying to sustain like it just reminded me like the dunes there, how they're trying to protect their dunes with the Prince Edward Island with their dunes, and you know and that's the other thing, that sustainability, right? Like Prince Edward Island, as you said, I mean, as we know from history over centuries, how islands come and go and come and go. So how do you know, keep that and the well-being of the people once they have to leave and they can never return? And it's that whole culture. It's just wonderful. The people, how they come together, just it was amazing. What an amazing experience. It really was. And at the heart of it all, at the end of that, and I said before to Matt and Philip as well, was the heart of it all was how much they just loved their island itself. It just, the root of it all was their island. And yeah, it was amazing. Amazing experience.
I'm happy to hear that you enjoyed it. I love what you talked about, the idea of literary tourism. Well, a couple things I actually really liked. I also loved the idea of the exchange between islands in terms of migration patterns. I'm on Mackinac Island, and we see a huge number of migrant workers that come from Jamaica, of all places. And so they're coming from another island. And then, of course, I was thinking of Amherst, which also has a town called Kingston. There's all these weird little island parallels that jump out to me. But getting back to the literary tourism thing, that is such an interesting, I mean, that in and of itself as a topic feels so rife for like unpacking. Like why are people traveling to experience the place where an author had their experiences? And how does that change the way that you experience an island? I don't know if you're planning on coming to the next summit on Mackinac Island, but we have an author not as famous as Anne of Green Gables, but Constance Fenimore Woolson, who was also a 19th century author who wrote a book called Anne, and we have a big monument to it. It was not a bestseller, but it was critically well well received at the time. And we get a fair number of tourists who come who are Constance Fenimore Wilson enthusiasts who want to do research on her and want to see the monument and want to go stand where she stood when she was writing the book and see the little cottage where she lived when she was working on it. So it's a really interesting thing that I think happens on more islands than we might realize, that there's literature that comes out of those places, and because they're so isolated and unique, it really drives that sense of identity that's connected to literature. It's a really refreshing take too. We so often we focus on the sciencey aspects of islandness and the environment and the infrastructure and the city planning and all of that. But there's also this cultural undercurrent and sense of identity that comes out of being on an island. And I love hearing that you're looking at that too and studying that and really looking at the theoretical and literary background for that. So yeah, that not a question, just some musings. Matt's got a couple of questions, it looks like. Oh yeah, do you think islands create or you maybe generate certain types of authorship? Um, and oh, I didn't realize, I guess Margaret Atwood has a big Pelee Island connection. Also cool. Maybe we need to do an inventory of island authors and do a literature review of all of them.
Ooh, from the Great Lakes, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I know that we had for many years, David Hellwig was moved to Prince Edward Island when he followed his heart and met up with his old love, and they lived together here until he passed away. But he had spent a lot of time on Wolf Island, just next door to Amherst Island. And so, yeah, that would be a really great project to find out who's writing on these islands.
I did want to circle back to Lori. I wanted to know if you could talk a little bit more about the conferences that you do. They sound like they're quite involved. One of them, I think you said, had over 100 presenters.
Hmm.
I'm just thinking about there could be a really great opportunity for exchange with GLIA. If we were to send folks to your conferences or potentially present research or material there. I mean, we've done a few small scale research projects and are thinking about some bigger ones. But yeah, I just wondered if you could maybe talk just for a moment more about the conferences and how that all works, who attends.
Well, there's different organizations. The one that comes to mind first for GLIA would be the SURF slash NAF, the North Atlantic Forum, and that's happening in Corner Brook in June, this coming June, and it involves people talking about rural and islands. And this one is on relational wellness. So it's people that are researchers at universities, there's community organizations that present their research on what they're doing. We have policymakers there. Sometimes people do panels on from their jobs in government, talking about rural places and island places. So it's a real mix. That one in particular is a lovely mix between community and academic. And I'm not quite sure where surf is going to be next year, so it could be really fantastic for somebody to come and actually present their research. The papers are, call for papers is closed now for Corner Brook, but just to come and experience it would be really, really amazing. We also, I think many of the other ones that I know of and the ones we've organized are academic, mostly scholars coming from different universities and colleges from Canada and the Caribbean. And I'm thinking of our Turning the Tide conferences, which focus on climate change. So that seems to be a mix of people from, yeah, mostly Canada, the US, and the Caribbean. And also we're now we've partnered with Tokyo, Sophia University in Tokyo. So we've been getting a few scholars there who've been doing some work. So the ASISA conference, the one that's happening in South Korea in July, is that the next one is going to be in Curacao. The call for papers hasn't gone out yet. Curacao is in the Caribbean, and that'll be in 2027. And yeah, I'm going to put you, I know Matt's on our mailing list, but I'll make sure, Philip, you are as well. And then you can shoot any of our newsletter out or anything to your members, feel free. The calls for papers for these conferences come up, and I know that something that we talked about when we first got the UNESCO chair in island studies and sustainability was having a conference on freshwater islands, because this is something that is really lacking in the island studies discourse. We don't have nearly enough research and not enough attention paid to freshwater islands or river islands in freshwater, and they have some of the very same issues that we, as we talk about. And I've seen your newsletters and calls for, your meetings. The concerns are the same, and so let's talk about them. But surely there are probably differences as well. Joe, when you're talking about the ice and in Lake Ontario, and I know here on Prince Edward Island, our ice situation is similar, but not, I don't think we were nearly as dependent on the ice as Amherst Island would have been in that time. So it's been, yeah, yeah, I'll make sure that you guys are in the loop.
Yeah, please do. Well, we've got about 7 minutes left, and I want to make sure we open the floor to everybody. If you have questions or thoughts or comments you want to share,
I
feel
know
free to
Joe
come.
had asked the one question of what was my favorites
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
Montgomery work there, and my favorite was the Story Girl. I love the Story Girl because she wrote it from the perspective of a male. Um, so I thought, wow, that's different. So you could see that she was kind of trying to see what is a boy's mindset like, right? Like and how, and the Story Girl is her. Telling story, and it's so it captured her young self, right? Um, but my other favorite is Jane of Lantern Hill, because that's where you could see that her two identities as a mainlander and an islander kind of come together, and that one was really, yeah, that one was pretty powerful to me, actually. Yeah, so that's
And I
that's that.
know Joe has been doing some research on some of the classic island literature as well. And so, coming as out of English with your Bachelor of Arts in English, I'm really pleased to see your interest in island writing, Joe. It's really great. There was a
Yeah.
question. Where'd it go?
Yeah, Peter, did you have a question? I saw your hand go up.
I was just curious whether or not um, the people, I saw that question early on about the U.S. students, if we knew who they were and where they were from.
Yes, Lori had answered that. One of them was from Cranberry, you said?
Yeah, Little Cranberry Island off the coast of Maine. And
And
then,
the,
yeah,
and the other one was from New Jersey, which has some islands around it, but isn't an island itself.
Okay,
right.
good.
Yeah, yeah,
And then off the Carolinas.
yeah. Right,
That's
right.
along the, yeah.
Good
Well,
question.
I have friends who go to Curacao every year. It's supposed to be a really fantastic place to visit. We'll have to see about putting together a paper for that.
Oh, that would be great. Yes. Okay. I'll make sure we get the call for papers to you. I see one of the questions about dark sky preservation efforts in the islands. I don't know. I do know that Jasper in Alberta has a dark sky festival every year in the mountains. But I also know that the Unst, it's spelled UNST, one of the Shetland Islands in the north of Scotland, has a spaceport now, because that's the most ideal, one of the most ideal places to launch satellites from, because it's dark. You can have this, it's like dark sky. It's because of the dark sky that it's become this spaceport. So, hey, maybe there's an opportunity there. That might get some people arguing if wind farms are going to
Yeah,
cause a controversy. I'm sure a spaceport would be on steroids.
gosh.
No, I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say Joe Shorthouse, I know had something he wanted to share, so I'm gonna put you on the spot, Joe, but you already came off mute, so I think you're ready to go.
Right. A couple comments. One is Your program is a Master of Arts. Does that mean there's room for somebody who is working on geology or biology? Is it multidisciplinary, even though it's called Master of Arts?
Yeah. Yeah, we call it interdisciplinary, so it's got lots of different
Lots of
layers
things.
in it. And biology, as long as we can have somebody who is able here at UPEI or in our orbit to supervise it and I mean, we have both quantitative and qualitative research methods happening. So, science is often in the quantitative, but it's kind of social science as opposed to hard science. So there are different ways you can look at geology and archaeology and biology and not so much chemistry probably, but through a social science lens, not just hard science, but coming in with a bachelor of science would be totally fine. We've had actually a young woman who had a bachelor of chemistry come in, and she was really interested in Ireland, so she did her thesis on Irish immigration. But yes, the short answer is yes.
Yes. Can you see a way that professor at one of the universities around the Great Lakes would co-supervise a student with your program? Have
Yes.
you done anything like that as yet?
We've had lots of co-supervisors from different places. Yep. Not from around the Great Lakes, but we'd be happy to explore that for sure. That'd be a great way to start a collaboration.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that GLIA would be interested in doing
Mhm.
is connecting with your program on different aspects of island life. And so perhaps most of the professors at the Great Lakes universities likewise are not aware of this program. So
Mm.
one place that GLIA could help would be to identify some of the universities that may be aware of opportunities to co-supervise and co-fund a student.
That would be amazing. If you could do that, I would definitely follow up.
Good.
Excellent.
Yeah, we can for sure do
Yeah.
that. Fantastic. Well, we've got just about 1 minute left. Maybe time for one more question or thought, if anybody has any lingering. And if not, that's all right. I think I mentioned this will be recorded and it'll be on our YouTube channel probably within the next week or so. So you can share it with your friends if they didn't get a chance to attend. And in the meantime, always feel free to reach out to us. I'm the communications guy, so that's my email there. And head to our website. We'll have info about our summit coming up very soon, as well as info for how to you can get on our mailing list if you want to continue to get updates. But big thank you to the three guest speakers from University of Prince Edward Island. This was absolutely fascinating. So many parallels that I hadn't even realized existed until now. So I'm really excited to keep learning more and maybe go to one of your conferences pretty soon.
And I got to get myself to Mackinac.
Yes, we'd love to have
Yeah.
you. Please.
After hearing Helena's experience, I got to get
Yeah,
there. So,
that's
It
yes,
was,
great place.
yeah, just to make one last comment about that experience was that because, it's the Great Lakes, we're still divided by our border, right, of Canada and
Yep.
the US. But yeah, being there, I, I I did not feel that at all. Like it's like there was no border.
Mm.
We're just one. It was
Yep.
excellent.
Yeah,
lovely.
I'll share one more thing with you, even though we're at 1 minute past. Yesterday was our final street hockey game on Mackinac Island. We do street hockey in the middle of the street once a week, all winter long. And the teams did their national anthem at the beginning of the game, and they sang the Canadian national anthem as well
Oh,
to
that
honor
just,
Canada.
I love it.
So it was very heartwarming because it really does feel like we are a binational place, even though we're just over the border.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, there's some lessons here.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Beautiful. Thank you, everybody.
All
Thanks.
right. Well, thank you, everybody, and have a great afternoon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.